Hello and welcome to Kindful Living. My name is Zara, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm a mother to 2 boys, as well as a child and family therapist. I make videos about how to live a more kind and mindful life. Today's video is all about COVID-19, and in particular, I want to talk about how kindfulness can help us to stay healthy and strong amidst this outbreak. If you've been watching the news, you probably are aware that the number of cases globally is on the rise. And as a result, the World Health Organization actually labeled this virus outbreak as a pandemic earlier on in the week. After that happened, there was a frenzy and chaos everywhere as countries all around the world took different types of measures to ensure that they could have more of a control over this outbreak. When people heard this, of course, there was chaos everywhere. People have gone as far as to basically hoard items in their house if stores were to close. So people are buying non-perishable foods and baby items and distilled water and everything you can imagine and trying to keep as much stock in their homes as possible. As a result, this is making those that aren't able to purchase those items scared. And for those that are already struggling with mental health issues such as anxiety or postpartum or even post-traumatic stress disorder, this can be very destabilizing. To combat this scary news and anxiety, I thought I would share some tips on how kindfulness can help us to stay healthy and strong. Although kindfulness can't help us to be immune from contracting COVID-19, so it's still smart to use cautions when proceeding for the next couple of weeks or even months. What kindfulness can help us achieve is to be freer from panic and anxiety by grounding us, helping us to develop and practice healthy habits, helping us to protect ourselves and our loved ones, and most importantly, helping us tap into our inner wisdom, our intuition, our resilience, and our strength. So my first tip is to try to work with the anxiety rather than to be in denial or to let it go into overdrive. We all know that things are changing very quickly and the number of cases are on the rise. And it's no wonder that there's so much anxiety and worry out there because what we're realizing every day is that we really don't know a lot about COVID-19. This situation causes the perfect storm for anxiety. So although it's important to recognize that we are in a state of anxiety and worry, it's also important to not let this get out of control because when we experience too much anxiety, we get stuck and we're not able to think critically and to make good decisions. That said, it's important for us to be able to acknowledge what we're feeling, whether it be fear, anxiety, worry, and for us to really understand the situation for what it is so that we're able to identify what is constructive versus when we're adding our own anxieties and worries to a situation that is already worrisome enough. Exercise is a really great way to help control our anxiety, and it's actually the quickest way to bring our anxiety down because of all the feel-good hormones that it produces. So while it is not advisable to go to gyms and to go to public places to exercise, because there is a worry that we're in close contact with others when we're exercising, we can still exercise by running outdoors or by even just watching a YouTube video in our home and practicing yoga or doing calisthenics or weight training. Although it might be difficult for some of us that are used to group environments for exercising, and I'm one of those people, this is a time for us to really practice caution. My second tip is to not just build, but to also practice healthy habits. So we all know how important it is to wash our hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds after we touch something that's dirty or that could be contaminated, or to not touch our face or to put our hands in our mouth or in our eyes. But especially at a time like this, it's really important to practice those habits to keep ourselves and the ones that we love and are in close contact with safe. Mindfulness is really a helpful strategy for being aware of what we're doing rather than just automatically putting our hands on our face. And I'm really guilty of that because I often touch my chin or I'll touch my face just as a bad habit, really. So one of my friends was just talking to me the other day and she said, I've washed my hands so many times that I'm actually getting bored and I had to make a fun activity out of it. So what she's doing is that she's using those 20 or 30 seconds while she's washing her hands dozens of times a day to meditate and to just take some time for herself. So she closes her eyes, she says, and instead of counting the seconds while she's washing her hands, she'll just take 5 deep breaths. And that's her way of knowing that she has washed her hands for long enough. You can make it a fun activity. You can also make it some time for yourself. Whatever the case is, turn those necessities into something that's more fun and enjoyable enjoyable as well as beneficial for you. And now more than ever, all those healthy habits that we are all striving to incorporate into our life, such as getting a good night's sleep and eating healthy foods, exercising like I mentioned earlier, meditating, and limiting our caffeine intake are important to incorporate into our daily life. Ensuring that these mindful and healthy habits are a part of your daily routine will not only help you to maintain a strong immune system, but they will improve your chances of staying healthy. The third tip that I have is to strengthen our minds. And although we can strengthen our minds in many ways, because this video is about kindfulness, I will speak about mindfulness meditation. So mindfulness meditation is a two-step process. And the first step requires us to calm our mind and to just be centered and grounded enough for us to do the second step, which is to be able to have awareness about what's going on around us so that we're able to simply coexist with it without forming judgments or having any emotional reactions. Using mindfulness is super helpful for being able to release anxiety for things that are out of our control, as well as focusing on the present and being aware of what's going on without slipping into denial. So just like it's not helpful for us to be on our phones or laptops or watching the news all hours of the day for every COVID-19 update, or to be out in the stores buying everything possible just to feel well prepared, it's also not helpful to be in denial. So that means being aware of the risks that exist if we were to not self-quarantine after traveling, or to not social distance simply for the sake of going out because we're bored. Being in denial means that we're not able to be socially responsible, and this could really negatively impact those that are especially vulnerable, like those with compromised immune systems, the elderly, and young children. Practicing kindfulness helps us to strike a healthy balance between being informed and knowing what's going on and not being too anxious, as well as not being in denial, so that we're not taking proper precautions to keep ourselves as well as others in society safe. On an added note, during this period of social isolation, those that have strong minds are more likely to get through this difficult time with as least amount of stress as possible. Those that aren't used to isolation or solitude or not being able to constantly have external distractions are probably going to have a more difficult time. So for those of you who haven't practiced mindfulness meditation or who don't practice it regularly, now is a really good time to start for the reasons that I mentioned before, but as well to help us get through this difficult time where we're not going to have as much contact with others, and when we're not going to really be able to have those external distractions to keep us from having to think about what is in our mind. That said, it is important for us to keep in contact with those that are in our support circle, not to mention those in our society that are vulnerable because they're marginalized or isolated. So that brings me to my next tip. Surviving this requires all of us to work together. And that means that if we know of any elderly or individuals with special needs, or anyone that might be isolated or doesn't drive, it would be really helpful and really kind of us to be able to reach out to those individuals, to make sure that we're in contact with them, that they know that they can call us if they need supplies, or if they need a helping hand, or someone to support them in whatever way would help them to get through this as healthily and as happily as possible. My last tip is to stop overthinking this pandemic. So while it is very serious and there have been dire consequences for many individuals that have contracted COVID-19, the same habits that we should be holding ourselves accountable to, and the same lifestyle that we should all strive to have, is what we really need to maintain a healthy and positive outlook, as well as to get through this really difficult situation. So it's important for us to maintain proper hygiene, take care of our health, and to keep our minds and our bodies strong, because really that's our only defense towards any difficult or hard time that life throws our way. I hope these tips were helpful, and you are able to find your own individual ways to stay happy, healthy, strong, and grounded during what is a very difficult time. If any of you have any tips that I might have not discussed in this video, please feel free to share by commenting below. As for how my family is getting through this, we ceased attending my children's programming actually 2 weeks ago because we didn't want to take a risk. My boys are young, they're 24 months and 8 months, so we stopped their swimming classes, their dance classes. We also stopped going to the community center, which we do various times a day, just because at that age kids put everything in their mouth, so we didn't want to push our luck. We also made sure to get some extra food items and essential items like diapers, baby food, but we're not overdoing it, and we're definitely not stockpiling, because I would hate to know that because we were hoarding items in our house, others weren't able to get what they needed to take care of their families. We're also finding lots of activities to do indoors, but because I'm already at home with both of my boys, it's not going to be too different for me in terms of social distancing, because we are schooling at home and we do a lot of activities throughout the day at home. We live in a world with lots of very wonderful people. Although the news is really quick to jump on these extreme cases of individuals that might be selfish and still trying to travel amidst the panic that's going on, or those that are going out and buying everything in the stores, leaving empty shelves, there's just as much kindness and generosity and goodwill, if not a lot more of that. So that's pretty much about it for this video. I wish you all the best with the next couple of weeks and staying happy and healthy and strong. I just hope that everyone's able to be kind to themselves and to each other so that we can get through this together and be better and stronger because of it. Take care, and thank you for watching.